What kind of daughter packs her mother's suitcase before asking if she wants to leave? The question burned in Opal Merritt's throat when she found her good church dress folded beside her medicine bottles and worn slippers. The suitcase sat outside her bedroom like a quiet verdict. In the front room, Laurel was speaking softly on the phone, using the voice she saved for doctors, bankers, and people she wanted to impress. "She is getting worse," Laurel whispered. "We cannot wait much longer." Opal stood frozen in the hallway, one hand on the wall, listening to her own daughter turn concern into evidence. That morning, the bank had called about papers Opal never remembered signing. Yesterday, the water station behind the laundromat had been shut down without her permission. Now her clothes were packed. Then she heard her son in law say, "Do not let her near the office keys." And for the first time, Opal wondered if they were not trying to protect her at all. Her hand stayed on the doorframe until the shaking in her fingers stopped. Then Opal walked back to her bedroom, emptied the suitcase, and carried it to the front door like evidence. Laurel saw it the moment she came out of the front room. Her phone was in her hand, and her face tightened before she could make it gentle. "Mom, why are you unpacking?" "Because I am not leaving. We talked about this." "No, you talked." "I listened." Eric stepped behind Laurel with the calm smile he used whenever he wanted to sound reasonable. "We are only trying to keep you safe. Then you should have started by asking me." Laurel crossed her arms. "You left the water station running last week." Opal stared at her daughter. She remembered shutting the blue hose off herself before she locked the back door. "I did not. The meter showed extra use," Eric said. "Meters show what they are told to show when somebody has keys." Laurel's eyes widened, then hardened. "Are you accusing us?" "I am asking why my clothes were packed without me." Laurel looked wounded, but there was anger underneath it, because you keep refusing to admit things are changing. A cold thought moved through Opal. The suitcase was not the beginning. It was only the first thing they had failed to hide. "I want my office keys." Eric glanced away for half a breath. "They are on your desk." "No, they are not." Laurel reached for her, but Opal stepped back. "I am going downstairs. You should rest. I have rested enough while other people make phone calls over my head." She opened the apartment door and went down the narrow back stairwell. Detergent, dust, and hot metal rose from below, the smell of her life for more years than she cared to count. The laundromat was already awake. Washers turned behind round glass doors. Dryers clicked and thumped. Heat pressed against the front windows until the parking lot looked like it was floating. Rosa Valdez stood behind the counter with the yellow rag in one hand and worry in her eyes. "They came early," Rosa said. "How early before opening?" "Mr. Kane used the side door key. He said he had it. He did not need to. I saw him use it." Opal looked toward the half-open office door. "Did he go in there?" Rosa nodded. "Your daughter told me not to bother you. She said you had a hard night." "I slept straight through." "I know." Those two words steadied Opal more than any chair could have. She walked into the office. The room was small, with a metal desk, a file cabinet, two folding chairs, and Vernon's old jacket still hanging behind the door. The desk drawer had been pushed closed, but not all the way. Opal opened it. The tin refund box was there. The spare machine keys were gone. She opened the lower drawer where she kept vendor bills in a blue folder marked with tape. That folder was gone too. Rosa came to the doorway. "Did you move my blue folder?" "No, I did not think so." A dryer door slammed in the main room. Life kept going with no respect for the moment a person's trust cracked open. Rosa lowered her voice. "There is something else. Yesterday, after you went to the clinic, your daughter told Mrs. Palmer the laundromat might be sold." Opal gripped the back of the chair. "Sold?" She said it like she was sad about it, like it was already decided. Mrs. Palmer washed motel uniforms twice a week. If Laurel had told her, then half the regulars would hear by supper. "I never said I was selling." "I told her that." "What did she say?" "She said your daughter told her you were overwhelmed." Opal gave a small laugh, but it broke before becoming sound. "Overwhelmed." That is a pretty word for pushed. Before Rosa could answer, Earl Dunleavy came through the front door carrying two empty water jugs. Morning, Opal. Machine out back is blinking red again. Again. The word struck harder than it should have. Opal stepped from behind the counter. It was blinking when you got here? Sure was, says service required. Took my quarters and spit them right back. Opal walked past the rows of machines and out the rear door into the bright heat behind the building. The water station stood under its shade roof, paint faded, coin slot polished by thousands of hands. A red light blinked beside the service panel. Service required. She bent close. The panel cover was loose, not open, not hanging, just loosened enough to show someone had touched it with a screwdriver. Dust marked the edges, but one screw head was clean. Earl stopped behind her. I heard maybe this place is closing. Opal turned slowly. Who told you that? He rubbed his jaw. Your daughter mentioned you might be taking it easy soon. Said family had to make choices sometimes. The heat pressed through Opal's blouse and into her ribs. What did she say about the water station? Just that it might not stay open. Shame if true. My sister fills here. Her tap water tastes like old pennies. Behind the station, the fenced utility yard held the pump shed. The padlock was still there. But now Opal wondered how many keys existed in hands that should not have had them. When she went back inside, Laurel was at the counter speaking to Rosa in a tone that had sweetness without warmth. Eric entered a moment later, carrying two paper cups of coffee. He had brought Opal coffee many times before asking for a favor. Always coffee first. Always comfort before the hook. Good, everyone is together, Eric said. No, Opal said. Everyone is not together. My spare machine keys are gone. Laurel's mouth tightened. Mom, please do not start. My bill folder is gone too. You have so many papers. It was in my lower drawer. Eric set one coffee on the counter. Oak vendors send digital copies now. There is no reason to panic over a folder. I did not say panic. I said gone. A customer near the dryers stopped folding. Laurel noticed and lowered her voice. Can we go upstairs? No. You are making this harder than it has to be. Opal felt the sentence like a hand on the back of her neck. What is this? Laurel looked at Eric. Eric answered, a plan. What plan? A plan to keep you from losing everything because you will not admit you need help. Rosa made a small sound. Eric looked at her as if furniture had spoken. This is family business. Opal's voice stayed level. Rosa has worked here longer than you have been married to my daughter. She can stand where she wants. Eric's calm smile thinned. Laurel looked down, but not before Opal saw fear cross her face. Not fear for Opal. Fear that the conversation was no longer staying neat. I want my keys, Opal said. Laurel swallowed. Eric took them because I asked him to. The laundromat seemed to shrink around Opal. The dryers thumped harder. Earl shifted near the door and looked down at his jugs. You asked him to take my keys? For safety. Whose safety? Everyone's. Give them back. Eric slipped one hand into his pocket and took out the ring. The keys hung from his finger, silver and ordinary, as if they had not just carried the weight of betrayal. He placed them on the counter, but his hand stayed over them. After today, we need to have a serious conversation. Opal reached out. He did not move his hand. Her eyes lifted to his move. For the first time since he had joined the family, Eric looked at her without the soft smile. Something flat and impatient showed through. Then Laurel touched his sleeve. Just give them to her. He let go. Opal picked up the keys. They were warm from his pocket. She walked into the office, put them in the drawer, locked it, and placed the key in the pocket of her dress. The blue folder was still gone. Laurel followed her to the doorway. Mom, I know you think I am being cruel. I know you are standing in my business after telling people I cannot run it. I am trying to protect you. From what? Laurel pressed her lips together. From becoming one of those people who does not know when to stop, Laurel said. Opal absorbed the sentence without blinking. One of those people. You know what I mean. I do. Laurel looked ashamed, but not enough to take it back. Eric set his coffee on the edge of Opal's desk, leaving a damp ring on a receipt pad. Then he opened a black leather folder. "We are meeting with the branch manager at 3, he said. "No." "Yes, because if you refuse, it only confirms what people are worried about." The trap in the sentence was clean. If she went, she walked into the meeting they had arranged. If she refused, they would call it proof. This had not begun with the suitcase or the keys or the blinking red light. Those were only pieces she could see. Rosa moved closer to the office door, her eyes fixed on Eric's black folder. She did not speak, but Opal understood the warning in her silence. Something was moving faster than the morning itself, and whatever it was, Laurel and Eric had already decided Opal should learn about it last. The office phone rang. No one moved at first. Not Laurel, not Eric, not Rosa, not Opal. Then Opal walked back and picked it up. "Merritt Wash and Water," a woman's voice spoke briskly. "May I speak with Opal Jean Merritt?" "This is Opal. This is Denise with Western Plains Community Bank. I am calling to confirm whether you are available to come in this afternoon regarding the account authority documents we discussed earlier." Opal felt every eye in the room on her. "I did not discuss account authority documents." A pause came over the line. "I am sorry, Mrs. Merritt. I spoke this morning with a family representative who said you were prepared to begin a transition for business account oversight." Opal looked at Laurel. Laurel had gone pale, but her chin remained lifted. "What family representative?" The woman hesitated. "Your daughter is listed as the contact. My daughter is not authorized to move my accounts." "I understand. That is why we require your in-person confirmation." Opal's hand tightened around the receiver. "Did someone tell you I was not capable of coming in alone?" Another pause came. This one was worse. "I think it would be best for you to speak with our branch manager directly." Careful. That was how the woman sounded. Careful meant there was a file now, a shadow version of Opal on paper, a woman other people could manage. Opal thanked Denise and hung up. The washers turned. The red service light blinked through the rear window. Coffee steamed untouched on the counter. Opal looked at Laurel. "What did you tell the bank?" Laurel swallowed. "I told them the truth." "Say it." "I told them we were concerned." "About what?" "About you." Eric stepped closer. "This is getting emotional. We should continue upstairs." Opal did not look away from Laurel. "What did you tell the bank?" Laurel's eyes filled, and for one weak second, Opal almost softened. Tears had always undone her. When Laurel was little, she could cry over a broken crayon, and Opal would stop everything to make the world gentle again. But these were not a child's tears. These were grown tears, placed carefully in front of a door Laurel wanted opened. "I told them you forgot payments. I told them customers were complaining. I told them you had trouble keeping the water station safe. I told them Eric and I might need to help before something happened." Before what happened? Before you got hurt, before someone sued you, before you lost the business because you were too proud to let your family step in. My family did step in. That is the problem. Laurel came into the office slowly with Eric right behind her. She placed the care facility brochure on the desk beside his document. "Just look at it." Opal did not touch it. "No, it is not a prison." "Then why are you trying to send me there without asking?" "I did ask. You suggested. I refused. Then you kept going." Laurel's voice cracked. "Because I am scared." Opal waited. "I am scared you are going to fall down those back stairs. I am scared a machine is going to catch fire. I am scared some stranger is going to rob you at closing. I am scared you will sit in this place until something awful happens, and then everyone will ask why your only daughter did nothing." For the first time that day, Opal heard a piece of truth. Not the whole truth, but a piece. "Laurel, being scared does not give you the right to take over." Laurel stared at her as if the answer itself had betrayed her. Eric slid the document closer. "This simply allows Laurel to speak with the bank and vendors while we sort out what is best." Opal stared at the paper without reading. "Where is my blue folder?" Eric's smile thinned. "We are talking about this document. I am talking about my folder." Laurel said, "Mom, please focus." Opal looked at her daughter across the desk. Laurel stood in the office where Vernon had once fixed her school backpack with duct tape, where Opal had counted quarters late into the night to pay for Laurel's dental work. And now Laurel stood there beside a man with papers, asking her mother to focus while strangers prepared to decide whether Opal was still fit to hold her own keys. The phone rang once more. No one moved. It rang again. Opal reached for it, but Eric put his hand lightly over the receiver. Let it go. Slowly, Opal lifted her eyes to his hand. Then she looked at Laurel, and in that narrow office, with the care home brochure open between them and the bank waiting on the other end of the line, Opal understood that her daughter had already begun living in a future where her mother no longer had a say. The receiver kept ringing under Eric's palm, each sharp sound trapped between his fingers and Opal's desk, as if even the telephone had been told to stay quiet. Opal watched his hand for one long breath. Then she placed her own hand on top of his. "Take your hand off my phone." Eric's face stayed calm, but his eyes moved to Laurel. "It is probably the bank again." "Then I will answer it." At last, Eric lifted his hand and Opal picked up. "Merritt Wash and Water." A man cleared his throat. "Mrs. Merritt, this is Dr. Haskins's office. We are calling to confirm your appointment for tomorrow morning." "I do not have an appointment tomorrow. Your daughter called and asked for a memory screening and medication review." The room went still. "My daughter did that without asking me. She said the family had concerns." Opal kept her eyes on Laurel. "I will call back myself." She hung up before anyone could speak. Laurel wiped under one eye. "Mom, that was not meant to hurt you." "Then what was it meant to do? To help." "Help who?" Eric sighed. "You are turning every reasonable step into an attack." "No, I am noticing that every reasonable step happens without me." Laurel held the care brochure. "People call me Mom. They say you leave things unlocked. They say the water station is not safe." "Who are these people?" "That is not the point. It is my life. Names are the point." Eric stepped into the doorway, soft-voiced and solid. "We are not doing this in front of employees and customers." Rosa, near the counter, lifted her chin but said nothing. Opal took a small notepad from her purse and wrote down the doctor's call, the bank call, the missing keys, the missing folder, and the water station light. Her hand was tight, but the words were clear. "What are you doing?" Laurel asked. "Remembering." The word made Laurel flinch. Eric gave a quiet laugh. "That suspiciousness is exactly what worries us." Opal looked at him. "When a person takes my keys, calls my doctor, talks to my bank, and tells my customers I am closing, suspicion is not illness, it is eyesight." The phone rang again. Opal answered before Eric could move. "Merritt Wash and Water." This time it was the detergent supplier. His voice sounded embarrassed. "Mrs. Merritt, we still have not received the last payment. If it is not in by Friday, the account goes on hold. I mailed that check. We also got an online request to change the billing contact." "What name?" "Laurel Kane." Laurel whispered, "I was only trying to make sure things got paid. Do not change anything. I will come by myself." After she hung up, the office felt crowded with invisible papers, calls, and quiet claims of concern. Eric closed his black folder. "This is why we need oversight. No, this is why I need locks changed." Laurel made a wounded sound. "You would change locks on your own daughter?" "My daughter changed herself into someone who calls my doctor behind my back." Laurel stepped away. Eric put his arm around her at once. "Come on," he said. "She is too upset to talk." They left through the side door. Laurel did not look back. Eric did. His gaze moved from the locked drawer to the pump shed outside the rear window. Then he smiled quick and thin. Opal noticed. Rosa came into the office after the door closed. "I should not say this. Say it. Mr. Kane asked me last week where you keep old property papers." Opal sat down slowly. "What did you tell him?" "I told him I did not know." "He said it was for insurance. Did he look in here?" "I found the bottom file drawer not quite shut after he left." Opal opened the drawer. Old tax receipts, machine warranties, plumbing notes. and faded county forms lay inside. One manila envelope had been moved to the back. Vernon's handwriting on the front said, Water Station Service History. Inside were pump invoices, mineral tests, service dates, and county copies. Nothing looked rich, nothing looked dangerous, yet something about the envelope made the small office feel colder. By noon, the laundromat filled with heat and talk. Customers tried not to stare, which meant they stared more. Each little kindness carried Laurel's fingerprints. Opal worked the counter and made the calls herself. She told the bank no account changes were to move forward unless she appeared in person, alone, with identification. She canceled the surprise doctor visit and made a regular appointment under her own name. Near 2 in the afternoon, a white service truck pulled behind the building. Martin Keene climbed out with his tool bag and a straw hat pulled low. Opal met him at the rear door. You picked a day. Martin looked at the blinking red light on the water station. This thing picked it for me. I did not call you. I know. Your son-in-law did. What did he tell you? Said the station was acting up and you had approved a full inspection. I did not. Martin's eyes narrowed. Then I look only if you tell me to. Look, but tell me everything. He opened the service panel and worked without chatter. After several minutes, he lifted a small connector between two fingers. This did not fail. What happened? Somebody loosened it, not enough to break it, just enough to throw a warning light. Could heat do that? No. Age? No. Then what? Fingers. Rosa whispered something from the doorway. Opal did not need translation. Martin tightened the connector and reset the station. The red light went dark. Green returned. Almost at once, a young mother pulled in with empty jugs and a baby on her hip. She smiled with tired relief when water began pouring again. Opal watched the clean stream fill one jug, then another. The sound tightened her throat. People still need it. They always have. Vernon knew that better than anyone. Opal looked at him. What do you mean? Martin waited until the woman loaded her jugs and drove away. Then he leaned against the shade post. Has somebody been asking about the back lot? Why would you ask me that? Because Eric Kane called me 3 days ago and asked whether the pump shed could be separated from the laundromat if a buyer only wanted access behind the building. The heat seemed to pulse around her. What buyer? He did not give a name. What did you tell him? I told him I fix pumps. I do not carve up property. Opal looked at the fenced utility yard and the dusty strip behind it. Martin, is there something about that water I do not know? He took off his hat and turned it in his hands. Maybe Vernon should have told you more. A defensive ache rose in her. Vernon told me what mattered. I am not saying he lied. I am saying he protected you from worry when he thought he could carry it himself. What worry? Years back, a company came through asking about old private water systems, clean sources, old rights. They offered Vernon money for access. How much money? Enough that he went quiet for a week. He never told me. He told me because I was servicing the pump when the first letter came. He asked if the system could handle heavy draw. I asked if he was thinking of selling. What did he say? Martin looked her in the eye. He said, not while Opal still has breath to argue with me. Tears pressed behind her eyes for a reason that did not feel like fear. That sounds like him. Then he said the water was not a prize for people who never stood in line with empty jugs. Before Opal could answer, Eric's dark car turned into the rear drive. Laurel sat in the passenger seat, pale behind the glass. Martin's mouth tightened. You want me to stay? Yes. Eric parked near the pump shed and stepped out with folded papers. Martin, he said, good to see you could make it. Martin did not smile. You told me Opal approved a full inspection. She did. No, Opal said, I did not. Eric's eyes moved to Martin, then back to Opal. We discussed maintenance last week. We discussed nothing about opening my water station. Laurel got out slowly. Mom, Eric was handling something you kept putting off. I did not put it off. I did not know about it. Laurel lowered her voice. You forget conversations. Shame rose in Opal's face before reason could stop it, not because Laurel was right, but because family knew where to place a blade. Eric opened the folded paper. Since we are all here, I spoke with someone who might be interested in evaluating the rear portion of the property. Opal looked at Martin. His eyes confirmed what she already understood. No, you have not heard the proposal. No. Laurel stepped closer, at least listen. No. Eric's patience began to peel. This could pay for better care, repairs, taxes, everything you keep worrying about. I am not worried about selling. You should be worried about liability. There is that word again. It is a real word. So is theft. Laurel gasped. Eric folded the paper slowly. I am going to ignore that because emotions are high. You do that a lot, Opal said. Ignore what does not help you. Martin stepped forward. Laurel, your mother has a right to know who is asking about this land. This is family business, Laurel snapped. Martin's voice stayed steady. Water business rarely stays family business. Eric turned toward him. What is that supposed to mean? It means I have seen men get polite when they smell money underground. Laurel looked confused and Opal noticed. Whatever Eric knew, Laurel did not know all of it. That did not make her innocent, but it changed the shape of the betrayal. A car horn sounded out front. Rosa opened the rear door. Opal, Dryer 4 is eating quarters again. I will come. Eric held up the paper. We are not finished. Opal walked past him. Yes, we are. Inside, the laundromat noise felt almost merciful. Machines did what they were built to do. They did not smile while taking from her. They did not tell strangers she was fading. Mrs. Danner stood by the bad dryer with a basket against her hip. Your daughter means well, honey. Opal opened the coin panel and kept her voice steady. What makes you say that? She came by asking if folks had noticed anything. She was worried. What did she ask? If I would sign that you had seemed forgetful. Rosa stopped moving. Did you sign? Opal asked. No. I said my memory is worse than yours. Opal shut the panel with care. What did Laurel do? She looked embarrassed. Her husband looked mad. A cold line drew itself through Opal's chest. This was no longer concern. It was collection. A form here, a call there, a doctor's note, a bank file, a vendor change, a customer statement. Piece by piece, they were building a woman who looked like Opal but could not be trusted. By late afternoon, Rosa had begun her own envelope. She slid in a copy of the service slip, the vendor note, Mrs. Danner's name, and a receipt proving Opal had been working the counter when Laurel claimed she was upstairs resting. Opal saw, but she did not stop her. At 3, Opal called the bank again. The branch manager admitted only that the bank had heard about memory concerns, missed payments, and a possible transfer of responsibility for Opal's protection. Opal gave one clear order. Nothing on any account was to change unless she stood there in person alone with identification. After the call, Opal sat in Vernon's old chair. Now, the worn wooden arms beneath her hands felt less like memory and more like instruction. Night settled heavy. The laundromat thinned to 2 customers, then 1, then none. At closing, Opal locked the front door and walked the aisles, touching each washer as she passed. Machines had paid for Laurel's braces, taxes, groceries, and every hard season they had survived. Laurel called just after 9. Opal answered from the office. Yes. Mom, we need to talk calmly. I have been calm all day. You have been impossible. Then say what you called to say. Laurel drew in a breath. I spoke with Desert Palms residents. Opal looked toward the dark window where her reflection stared back. Why? They had a cancellation. No. It is a trial stay. No. Just 2 weeks. No. Laurel's voice broke. If you refuse, I do not know what else to do. Try telling the truth. I am telling the truth. You are not safe there. I have lived here for years. That does not mean you should keep doing it. Opal heard Eric's voice in the background, low and urgent. Then Laurel returned. Firmer now. They can take you tomorrow morning. The words did not strike like thunder. They slid in like a blade. Take me. You know what I mean. Yes, I do. You need to pack tonight. Opal looked at the empty suitcase near the office door, waiting like a threat with patience. I am not going. Laurel's breath shook. Then, you are making me choose harder options. The line went dead. Rosa stood in the doorway. What did she say? She said a room opened. Rosa's face changed. Tonight, you stay with me. No. Opal. If I leave, they will call it proof I cannot manage alone. Then I stay here. Opal wanted to refuse, but she was too tired to lie to someone still standing beside her. All right. They turned off the lights one row at a time. Upstairs, the apartment was quiet, too quiet. Opal unlocked the door and stepped into the hallway. The suitcase was there again. This time it was full. It sat outside her bedroom with her coat folded over the top, her pill organizer tucked into the side pocket, and a white envelope taped to the handle with Laurel's handwriting across the front. Mom, please do not make this harder. The words on the envelope looked gentle, but Opal felt the threat underneath them before she even touched the paper. Rosa stepped around her and reached for the suitcase handle. Do not open it alone. Opal almost said that a woman did not need protection from her own daughter's handwriting. Then she looked at the packed coat, the pill organizer, and the careful fold of her nightgown beneath the zipper. The words died in her mouth. Rosa peeled the envelope from the handle and gave it to her. Inside was a typed note with Laurel's name signed at the bottom. Desert Palms residents would expect Opal by late morning. Laurel had arranged a private car. The stay was called temporary, compassionate, and necessary. Those words sat on the page like clean gloves hiding dirty hands. She did not ask, Rosa said. No, she arranged it. Yes. Rosa's face tightened. Then we call someone tonight. Who? The police, a lawyer, anyone. Opal folded the letter with slow care. If I call the police on my daughter tonight, she will cry in front of strangers and say I am confused. You are not confused. I know that. But knowing is not the same as proving. Rosa looked at the suitcase. Then we prove it. They carried the suitcase into the kitchen and left it unopened on a chair. Opal made coffee, though it was too late for coffee. Rosa sat at the small table with the envelope she had been building downstairs. The canceled service slip, the detergent notice, the banknote Opal had written herself, the list of people Laurel had spoken to. The time Rosa saw Eric use the side door key. All my life, I thought if I kept my voice steady, people would believe me. Rosa said, people believe paper faster. At the mention of paper, Opal thought of Vernon. He had kept every receipt and every county letter. She used to tease him for it. Now she wished he had left instructions big enough to stop Laurel at the door. The next morning arrived without mercy. Heat pushed against the apartment windows when Opal dressed. She chose a blue blouse, tan slacks, and the plain leather shoes she wore when she wanted her feet under her. The suitcase stayed in the kitchen chair. At 8:30, Laurel arrived with Eric in the same dark car. A private car came behind them, a silver sedan driven by a woman in a gray jacket who carried only professional patients. Opal opened the apartment door before Laurel could knock. Laurel stood with both hands clasped around her purse. Good, you are dressed. For work. Laurel's smile faltered. Mom, please do not make a scene. I own the building. If there is a scene, it walked in with you. Eric stepped forward, holding a folder. We have a scheduled admission time. No, you have an appointment you made without me. The woman from the sedan stood halfway up the stairs. Miss Merritt, I am only here for transportation. Opal looked at her. Then you may transport yourself back to wherever they hired you from. Laurel's face reddened. That was rude. No. Rude is packing a grown woman's clothes and sending a car. Eric lowered his voice. This is exactly the kind of agitation we warned them about. Rosa moved beside Opal. She is not agitated. She is refusing. The driver cleared her throat. I was told this was a voluntary transfer. Opal looked straight at her. It is not. The woman descended the stairs without another word. A minute later, the silver sedan left the parking lot. Laurel turned back with tears rising. Do you understand how this makes me look? Opal felt something old and weary split inside her. There it is. How this makes you look. Eric touched Laurel's back. We are leaving before this becomes worse. It became worse when you packed my medicine, Opal said. Eric looked up. You should be grateful someone noticed whether you were taking it correctly. I noticed the bottles were moved. Laurel frowned. What? Opal saw it again, that flicker of uncertainty. Never mind. Eric's eyes sharpened. Come on, Laurel. They went down the stairs. Laurel cried openly now, but she did not reach for her mother. Eric guided her through the rear door like a husband protecting his wife from a cruel old woman. By noon, people knew. A woman from church left a casserole at the counter and said, "No shame in getting help." A delivery driver asked Rosa whether future invoices should go to the Kane house. Each little sentence landed in Opal's chest. But she answered anyway because silence could be mistaken for guilt. I am not moving. I am not selling. My daughter does not speak for the business. By early afternoon, Eric called the detergent supplier from the parking lot. The supplier called Opal 5 minutes later and apologized for the confusion. Your son-in-law said he was taking over vendor coordination because of a health transition. There is no health transition. I understand. I will make a note. Make it in bold ink. After she hung up, Opal looked at Rosa. He is not even hiding now. Rosa slid another note into the envelope. Then he thinks he already won. Near closing, Martin Keene came back with a replacement part he said the water station did not need but should have anyway. He stayed after the last customer left, drinking burnt coffee in the office while Opal sorted the day's receipts. You need Brooks, he said. Laurel says Harlan Brooks is trouble. Martin snorted. Laurel thought every adult who told her no was trouble. Opal looked at him sharply. He lifted one hand. I am sorry. No, you are not wrong. Martin turned his cup between both hands. Vernon went to Brooks after that company came sniffing around. I do not know what he signed. I only know he came back calmer. Why would he not tell me? Maybe because men get foolish and call secrecy protection. Martin leaned forward. Listen to me. If Eric is asking about separating the back lot, he is not after washers and dryers. Opal thought of the green light on the water station, the steady flow, the jugs, the lines in summer when pipes failed in the trailers east of town. What does private water even mean anymore? It means old rights can matter when the ground gets thirsty. The next morning, Rosa found the canceled pump appointment. It was folded under the counter, wedged beneath the receipt printer as if someone had meant to hide it and retrieve it later. The paper showed that a full inspection had been scheduled under Opal's business name, then canceled the same way before Martin's service call. Opal had never handled pump work that way. She always called Martin directly. Rosa held the page with 2 fingers. This shows someone used your business name. Opal took the paper. Her name sat there in typed letters, proper and false. Opal Jean Merritt. Authorization confirmed. She felt a flicker of real fear. This was the fear of seeing your own name walking around without you. I am going to Brooks today. Rosa nodded. I will drive. No, I will drive myself. Opal. If I cannot drive to a lawyer, they will say, I cannot drive to my own mailbox. Rosa did not argue. She only followed Opal to the lot and watched until the old sedan pulled onto the road. Harlan Brooks' office sat in a low brick building near the county courthouse. The waiting room smelled of old paper and lemon polish. Harlan Brooks was older than Opal remembered, thinner at the neck, but his eyes were the same sharp gray. He stood when she entered. Opal! Harlan! I have been wondering when you would come. The words made her stop. You knew? I knew enough to wonder. Why did you not call me? Because if I call a widow about old legal papers while her family is circling, I become part of the fight before she has chosen one. I did not choose this fight. No, but you have to choose whether to stand in it. Opal sat down and set the canceled pump appointment, the bank note, and Rose's list on his desk. My daughter and her husband are trying to say I cannot manage my business. Harlan read without changing expression. Are you asking me for legal advice? I am asking what Vernon did with the water station. Harlan folded his hands. That is not the same question. Then answer the right one. I cannot tell you everything just because I suspect trouble. I am the wife. You are also the person someone may be trying to pressure. If I hand you certain information and you walk out to sign something under fear, I may help them instead of you. I am not signing. I believe you. Belief is not the same as record. What record do you want? I want you to return with proof that you are here by your own decision. Bring someone who is not family. State in writing that no one sent you to request documents for a sale or transfer, and ask one very specific question. What question? Harlan leaned back. Ask whether the water rights can be sold separately from the business. Opal's skin prickled. Can they? His silence answered too much and not enough. Harlan, ask it properly when we are on record. Opal stood. You lawyers can turn a life into a hallway with locked doors, and families can turn love into a set of handcuffs. Bring Rosa, bring Martin if he will come. Then I will open what Vernon left. Opal's heart struck once hard. Vernon left something? Harlan looked at her with an old sadness. He left protection. The word followed her all the way back to the laundromat. At the same hour, across town in a house with polished counters and no old coffee cups hanging above the sink, Tessa Merritt stood in the hallway outside her father's home office and listened to him swear under his breath. She had come by to pick up a charger she had left after Sunday dinner. Her mother was in the bedroom with a headache. Eric was behind the office door, speaking low into his phone. No. The old woman refused the transport. Laurel lost control of the morning. Tessa froze. Her father was quiet for a while. Do not push the date back. I can get the authority handled. The daughter is still useful. She believes most of it. Tessa pressed one hand to her stomach. Most of it. The bank is slower than expected, but that does not change the value. I need the updated closing language by tonight. Tessa stepped back. The floor gave a faint creak. The office went silent. Tessa? Eric called. She forced herself to move into the kitchen and open a drawer as if looking for something. He came out seconds later. What are you doing here? I left my charger. His laptop sat open behind him on the desk. The screen glowed with a document window and an email list. Tessa saw only a few words before Eric shifted his body into the doorway. Transfer conditions, private source access. Advance received. She looked down before he could notice. Mom, okay? She is upset because your grandmother is being difficult. Tessa heard her own voice come out thin. Grandma does not seem difficult. She seems scared. Eric's face changed so briefly that another person might have missed it. Fear makes older people stubborn. Did Grandma agree to sell something? Eric's smile returned. This is adult business. I am an adult. Then act like one and do not repeat hallway fragments you do not understand. Laurel came out of the bedroom in a robe. Tessa, honey, what are you doing here? Getting my charger. Laurel touched her forehead as if the light hurt. Your grandmother humiliated us this morning. Tessa looked at her mother's swollen eyes. Did she, or did she just say no? Eric's voice sharpened. That is enough. Tessa walked past him into the office before she could lose her nerve. My charger is in here. Eric followed. I will get it. But Tessa was already at the side table. Her charger lay where she had left it, coiled beside a printer. The laptop screen had dimmed but not locked. She saw the email subject line clearly now. Revised letter of intent and advance confirmation. Her father's hand closed the laptop. Found it. She took the charger. Thanks. That evening, Tessa sat in her car outside a grocery store, staring at the steering wheel. She told herself there might be an explanation. Maybe advance meant something else. Maybe closing language was legal, talk about safety. Maybe her father was only arrogant, not cruel. Then she remembered the way he had said, the daughter is still useful. Not Laurel, not my wife. The daughter. Tessa drove back after dark. Her parents' house glowed at the end of the street. Laurel's bedroom window was dark. Eric's office light was on. She still knew the side garage code. She still knew the place in the kitchen drawer where Eric kept the spare office key. Her hands shook as she unlocked the office door. The laptop was asleep on the desk. Tessa lifted the screen. It asked for a password. She tried Laurel's birthday. No. She tried the name of Eric's first dog. No. Then she tried the word he used for everything he wanted to own, legacy. The screen opened. The document was still there. So were the emails. She clicked the one with the subject line about the letter and the advance, and the words arranged themselves into something so plain that denial had nowhere to sit. There was a payment already received. There was a deadline. There was a reference to securing family authority before final review. There was language about private water access behind the laundromat. Tessa covered her mouth. The printer hummed too loudly when she pressed print. One page slid out. She grabbed only that page because footsteps sounded somewhere above her. She folded it once, then again, and pushed it deep into the inside pocket of her coat. The hallway floor creaked. Eric's voice came from the stairs. "Who is in my office?" Tessa did not answer at first. She held the printed page against her ribs and forced her fingers not to crush it. Eric's footsteps reached the bottom of the stairs. "I asked who is in my office. It is me," she called. He appeared in the doorway wearing a robe over his clothes, his face still arranged for sleep, but his eyes already sharp. They moved from the laptop to the printer, then to her coat. "What are you doing?" "I told you earlier. I left my charger." "At this hour? I could not sleep. Did you touch my computer?" "No." The lie came out small, but the room seemed to repeat it back. Eric stepped closer, and Tessa opened the office door before he could get between her and the hallway. Laurel's voice drifted from upstairs. "Eric, what is happening?" Tessa looked up. "Ask him why Grandma has to give up authority before some closing date." Laurel appeared at the top of the stairs, pale and confused. "What closing date?" Eric turned fast. "She is twisting things she does not understand." Tessa backed toward the kitchen, the folded page burning inside her coat. "Then explain them. This is not a conversation for the middle of the night, because Grandma is not here to defend herself." Laurel came down one step at a time. "Tessa, honey, what did you see?" Tessa almost pulled out the paper. Then she saw her mother look at Eric first, not at her. That one small movement told her where the proof would go if she handed it over. "I saw enough to know Grandma should not sign to anything." Eric's voice went cold. "You need to leave." Laurel whispered, "Tessa." Tessa opened the garage door. "I am going." Eric followed her to the threshold. "You repeat pieces of private business and you will hurt your mother more than your grandmother ever could." Tessa looked back at him. "I think you are the one hurting her." She drove without knowing where to go. The streetlights blurred in her windshield. She almost went straight to the laundromat, but the thought of waking Opal in the dark with half proof and a shaking voice felt cruel. She parked 2 blocks away and waited until dawn. By sunrise, Opal was downstairs. Rosa had slept on the apartment couch and came down with her hair tied back. The laundromat smelled of coffee, warm lint, and orange cleaner. Outside, the water station glowed green, steady, and stubborn. Opal checked every lock. The side door, the office door, the pump shed. Rosa handed her coffee. "You barely slept." "I slept enough to know I woke up here. That counts." At 9, Laurel arrived alone. She came through the front door wearing sunglasses and carrying a purse big enough for papers. Her face was carefully made up, but her mouth shook before she spoke. "Can we talk upstairs?" "No, I am your daughter. I know exactly who you are." The sentence landed hard. Laurel took off her sunglasses. "Do you think I wanted any of this?" "I think wanting stopped mattering when you packed my suitcase. I was scared." "You keep saying that like fear is a permission slip." Laurel opened her purse and took out papers folded into a neat packet. "Just sign temporary authority, not ownership, not a sale, just authority so I can help with the bank and vendors. Then all this fighting can stop." Opal looked at the papers but did not touch them. Temporary authority becomes permanent trouble when it is handed to people in a hurry. Laurel's eyes filled. You think I want to steal from you? I think you want me quiet. That broke something in Laurel. She covered her mouth and began to sob, not the careful crying from the office, but the ugly kind that came from a place Opal knew too well. Mom, please. I cannot keep being the bad daughter. I cannot keep telling doctors and bankers and Eric that you are fine when I do not know if you are. I cannot lose you in that building and then live with myself. Opal's hand moved before her mind could stop it. Laurel grabbed it with both of hers. Please, just sign so I can help. The paper slid closer. Opal saw her full name typed cleanly at the top: Business Account Authority, Vendor Coordination, Property Maintenance Discussion. Words that sounded harmless because harmful things rarely introduced themselves honestly. A pen lay across the page. Rosa looked up from the counter. Opal. Laurel cried harder. Do not listen to her. She does not know what it is like to be your daughter. Rose's face closed. No, I know what it is like to watch one. Opal stared at the pen. Laurel's hand was warm, familiar, desperate. A mother could spend a whole life learning the shape of her child's hand and still not know what that hand might take. Then the front door opened. Tessa stood there with uncombed hair, red eyes, and her coat still on despite the heat. Laurel turned. Tessa? Tessa looked at the papers on the table. Do not sign. Eric entered behind her. Tessa outside. Now. Opal felt the air change at the sound of his voice. Laurel wiped her face. What are you doing here? Tessa did not answer her mother. Her eyes went to Rosa. Something passed between them, not trust exactly, but a sudden understanding of who in the room might keep a dangerous thing safe. Eric crossed the floor. This is a private family matter. Rosa stepped away from the counter. Funny how many private family matters happen inside Opal's business. Eric reached for Tessa's arm. Tessa jerked back. Do not touch me. She pulled the folded page from inside her coat, but she did not hand it to Laurel. She put it in Rosa's hand. Eric stopped so suddenly that Laurel turned to stare at him. What is that? He asked. Tessa's voice shook. Something Grandma needs. Laurel reached out. Tessa, give it to me. Rosa closed her fingers around the page. No. Eric pointed at Rosa. You have no right. Opal stood straighter. She has my right. Laurel looked wounded. You are choosing her over me? I am choosing the person who did not pack my suitcase. Eric's jaw tightened. That paper was taken from my private computer. Tessa whispered, so it is real. No one moved. Laurel looked at him. What is real? Eric recovered quickly. It is a draft. Business speculation. Nothing binding. Rosa unfolded the page and read in silence. Her face changed as her eyes moved down the lines. Then she handed it to Opal. Opal read slowly. The words were formal and nearly bloodless. There was no full explanation, only enough to show that a stranger expected Eric to deliver something. Private source access, family authority, advance received, expected closing window. Opal placed the page beside the papers Laurel had brought. That is why you wanted my signature today. Eric's politeness vanished. No, that is why I wanted professionals to evaluate options before emotion ruined them. Options for what belongs to me, for what you are letting rot because you are too proud to see value. Laurel whispered, Eric. He turned to her. Do you want to keep pretending this place is sacred? It is washers, cracked tile, and a water machine that should have been monetized years ago. Opal felt the words strike, but they no longer surprised her. Rosa said, then why loosen the service panel? Martin Keene stepped in from the rear door carrying his tool bag. He must have been outside longer than anyone knew. She asked why somebody loosened the service panel. I would like to know too. Eric's face flushed. This is absurd. Martin set the bag down, so is calling me for work Opal never approved. Laurel backed into a chair. Everybody stopped. Martin looked at Opal. I went through old notes last night. Vernon kept copies with me after the first offer came, not legal papers, service records, water tests. Enough to show the source was clean and steady. Eric laughed. There is nothing illegal about evaluating water. No. Martin said, but there is something low about pretending a woman is failing so you can hurry her hand. Laurel covered her mouth. Stop saying that. Opal turned to her daughter. You brought papers for me to sign because I believed we were helping. Did you ask what he promised before I signed? Laurel looked at Eric. That answer was enough. Eric gathered the papers from the table. This circus is over. Opal placed her palm on them before he could lift them. These stay. They are mine. They have my name on them. Eric leaned close, and his voice lost every soft edge. You have no idea what you are sitting on. The laundromat went quiet, except for one dryer turning in the back. Opal met his eyes. Then I suppose I better find out. Eric straightened. You will regret making enemies out of the people trying to help you. Rosa held up her envelope. We have a list of all your help. Tessa stood near the door, trembling. Laurel looked at her daughter as if seeing a stranger. Tessa, how could you go into his computer? Tessa's face crumpled. How could you go into Grandma's life? Eric grabbed his folder and walked toward the door. Laurel, we are leaving. Laurel did not move. Laurel. She stared at the page on the table. Did you take money? Eric's mouth tightened. I said we are leaving. Answer me. He looked around the room, measuring what could still be controlled. This is not the place. Laurel's whisper came rough. Did you take money before Mom signed anything? Opal felt the word mom like a small piece of her daughter returning from far away. Eric said, I took an advance for due diligence. It is normal. Laurel sank into chair. Opal looked at the water station glowing through the rear window. She almost felt Vernon behind her, smelling faintly of machine oil and peppermint gum, telling her to quit staring at the storm and check the roof. Martin spoke softly. Vernon knew people would come back one day. Opal turned. What else did he say? Martin removed his hat. He said a dry county makes honest men thirsty and greedy men holy. Rosa let out a broken little laugh, then fell silent. Martin's face stayed grave. He did not trust offers dressed up as rescue. That is why he went to Brooks. Before Opal could answer, the office phone rang. Everyone looked toward it. Rosa picked it up because Opal did not move. Merit wash and water. She listened, then held the receiver out. It is Mr. Brooks. Opal took the phone. Harlan, his voice came firm through the line. Are Rosa Valdez and Martin Keene with you? Yes. Is anyone pressuring you to sign documents right now? Opal looked at the table, at Laurel's tears, at Eric's clenched jaw, at Tessa's folded shoulders. Yes, do not sign anything. I am on my way, Eric said. Who is that? Opal hung up. My lawyer. Eric laughed, but it sounded forced. The lawyer your daughter warned you about? Perfect. Laurel did not defend him. That silence irritated Eric more than any accusation. He paced once, then stopped near the office door. You people have no idea how business works. You think suspicion is proof. You think an old man's sentiment about a water pump is worth more than actual money. Martin's voice sharpened. Vernon was not sentimental when it came to papers. No, he was stubborn. And now Opal is doing the same thing, sitting in a dying business while everyone around her loses. Opal looked at Laurel. Is that what you think too? Laurel's mouth opened, but no answer came. It was not the worst betrayal of the week. Still, it hurt in a quieter place. Harlan Brooks arrived 15 minutes later with a leather case in one hand and a small recorder in the other. He did not hurry when he entered. He looked at each person, not like a guest, but like a man counting witnesses. Opal, are you asking me to be here? Yes. Are you under pressure to sign these papers? Yes. Eric stepped forward. She is exaggerating family concern. Harlan did not look at him. Opal, do you want these people present while I speak? Opal looked at Laurel. Her daughter sat folded into herself, mascara streaked, hands empty now. Tessa stood behind her, crying silently. Rosa and Martin waited. Eric stood too straight. Yes. Harlan placed his case on the folding table. Then I need you to ask me the question. Opal knew which one. Her voice came steadier than she felt. Can the water rights be sold separately from the business? Eric's head turned sharply. Laurel looked up. Harlan opened the case, not by ordinary transfer, not by family authority, not by a rushed signature presented under pressure. Eric's face changed. Harlan removed a sealed envelope, yellowed at the edges, with Vernon Merritt's handwriting across the front. Opal's name was written there, plain and beloved. Her knees weakened. Rosa moved a chair behind her without being asked. Harlan set the envelope down but did not open it yet. Vernon left instructions. He also left a recorded statement to be played only if someone attempted to push you towards sale, transfer, or removal from this property before you had independent counsel. Opal touched the edge of the envelope. Why did he never tell me? Harlan's eyes softened because he hoped love would be enough. No one spoke. Outside, a car pulled up at the water station. Coins dropped. A machine clicked. Water began to run steady and clear. Harlan lifted the small recorder. Opal, do you want to hear it? Her throat closed. She nodded, then forced herself to speak because this day had been built by people speaking for her. Yes. Harlan pressed play. For a moment, there was only a hiss of old sound. Then Vernon's voice filled the laundromat office, thinner than memory, but unmistakably his. Opal, if they are rushing you, it is not love. The old recorder clicked, and the silence that followed felt heavier than the voice that had just filled the office. Opal did not cry at first. She sat with one hand on the edge of the table, staring at the little machine as if Vernon might speak again. Laurel covered her mouth. Tessa stood behind her mother with both arms wrapped around herself. Rosa kept her eyes on Eric. Martin held his hat against his chest. Eric was the first to move. That proves nothing. Harlan Brooks placed one finger on the sealed papers. It proves enough to stop any signing today. It proves an old man was dramatic. Opal lifted her head. Do not talk about him that way in my building. Eric gave her a look stripped of every polite layer he had ever worn. This building is the reason everyone is in this mess. No, Opal said. Greed is. Laurel whispered, Eric, what did you promise them? He turned toward her too quickly. I promised nothing that could not have helped us. Use, our family. Tessa shook her head. You called Mom useful. Laurel looked at Tessa as if those words had cut through the last piece of fog around her. You heard him say that? Tessa nodded. He said you believed most of it. Eric exhaled hard. She heard one side of one call. Harlan opened the folder Tessa had given Rosa and laid the printed page beside Laurel's unsigned authority papers, then explained this side. Eric did not reach for it. That told Opal more than if he had grabbed it. Harlan read aloud, slowly enough for every word to settle. Advance received pending secured family authority and private source access. Laurel sat down as if her body had lost the will to stand. Advance, she said. Eric's voice lowered. It was a business deposit. For what? Laurel asked. For due diligence. For what? He looked at Opal, then at Harlan, then at the rear window where the water station stood under its shade roof. For the value of this property. Opal touched Vernon's envelope with 2 fingers. You mean the value of what is under it? Eric's face tightened. You were never going to use it properly. Martin stepped forward. Using it properly is letting people fill jugs for pocket change when their kitchen taps turn brown. Eric laughed without humor. That is not business. That is charity dressed up as stubbornness. Rosa's voice came quiet. Maybe that is why people trust her and not you. Eric swung his eyes toward her. You are an employee. She is a witness, Harlan said. Rosa took her envelope and placed each paper on the table. She did not hurry the laundry supply notice, the bank note Opal had written, the canceled pump appointment, the service slip showing the loosened connector. Mrs. Danner's signed statement, Earl's note about Laurel saying the place might close. By the time Rosa finished, the table no longer looked like a family argument. It looked like a case. Laurel stared at the papers. I asked Mrs. Danner if she had noticed things, she said, almost to herself. I told myself I was being careful. Opal looked at her. You were collecting doubt. Laurel's face crumpled. I did not know he loosened the panel. I believe that. Laurel looked up quickly, hope flashing through her tears. But you knew I had not agreed to leave. The hope died. Yes. You knew I had not agreed to give you control. Yes. You knew you were speaking to my bank and my doctor before I gave permission. Laurel pressed both hands over her eyes. Yes. The word was small, but it was finally honest. Eric shoved the papers back toward Harlan. This is emotional nonsense. Nothing was transferred, nothing was sold, nothing happened. Opal stood slowly. Something happened. My daughter packed my clothes. My doctor was called. My accounts were touched. My customers were told I was closing. My water station was made to look broken. My name was used in rooms where I was not sitting. Harlan nodded. And now, for the record, Opal Jean Merritt is refusing any transfer, any sale discussion, any business authority, and any medical or financial claim made by family members without independent review. Eric's mouth twisted. You think saying that out loud makes it law? No, Harlan said. The documents make it law. Her refusal makes it clear. Opal picked up the pen Laurel had brought. Laurel made a broken sound. Mom, please do not sign. Opal looked at her daughter, then drew one steady line through the signature space. She crossed out the first page, then the second, then the third. I refuse. The words sounded plain. They also sounded like a door locking. Eric stepped forward, but Martin moved between them. You do not want to do that, Martin said. Eric pointed at Laurel. You see what you caused? You let them turn you against me. Laurel looked up. No, you used me to reach her. For our future, for your deal. Our debts are real, Laurel. Opal's breath caught. Laurel looked as if he had slapped her. What debts? Eric closed his eyes for half a second. Do not start. What debts? He said nothing. Harlan gathered the printed page. I will be contacting the bank, the county recorder, and the company referenced here. If money changed hands based on false authority, that is not a family misunderstanding. Eric's face went pale with anger. You have no idea what you are doing. I have a fair idea, Harlan said. Eric turned toward Opal again, but there was no softness left to perform. You could have taken the money and lived like a queen. Instead, you will rot here with broken machines and people who cannot pay full price for water. Opal felt the sentence strike a bruise she did not know she still carried. Laurel had once been embarrassed by the laundromat. Eric had only learned which wound to press. She placed both hands on the table. This place paid for braces, groceries, medicine, school clothes, and every roof my family slept under. If that looks small to you, that is because you have never understood what work is. For the first time, no one answered him. Harlan used Opal's office phone. His calls were short and firm. He told the bank that all pending changes were unauthorized. He told the county office that no transfer, access agreement, or property discussion had Opal's approval. He left a formal message for the company named in the printed letter, stating that Eric Kane had no authority over the property or water source. Eric listened until the last call. Then he snatched his folder from the table. Laurel, we are leaving. Laurel did not move. Laurel. She looked at him as if she were seeing all the small commands that had sounded like care. Did you take that advance because of us or because of what you owed? Eric's silence was enough. Laurel removed her wedding ring. Her hand shook as she set it on the table beside the crossed out papers. No more using my mother's life to cover your lies. Eric stared at the ring. You are making a mistake. No, she whispered. I made it when I believed you over her. He left through the front door, hard enough to make the bell tremble after he was gone. The room stayed still. Outside, a customer fed coins into the water station. The machine hummed and clean water began to fall into a plastic jug. Opal listened to it until her heart slowed. Laurel turned to her. Mom, I am sorry. Opal looked at her daughter's empty ring finger, then at the suitcase papers still on the table. I believe you are sorry. Laurel stepped closer. Can you forgive me? Tessa began to cry again. Rosa looked down. Martin studied the floor. Harlan closed his folder and gave Opal the mercy of silence. Opal wanted to reach for Laurel. She wanted it so badly that it hurt her shoulders. A mother could know the truth and still ache for the child who had wounded her. Not today. Laurel stopped. I understand. No, you do not. But maybe one day you will. Laurel nodded, crying quietly. Opal's voice softened, but only a little. You may come by on Sundays for coffee. Not for business, not for papers, not for keys. If you want to know me again, you start as a visitor who was invited. Laurel covered her mouth and nodded again. Tessa may come whenever she wants, Opal said. Tessa looked up. I should have come sooner. Yes, Opal said, you should have. Do you hate me? No, baby. But fear is not harmless just because it is understandable. Tessa came around the table and hugged her grandmother. Opal let herself hold her, not because everything was fixed, but because this child had finally chosen the harder truth. Over the next few days, the private shame became public enough to protect Opal. Harlan filed notices. The bank froze every pending change. The company behind the letter withdrew so quickly that Harlan said fast footsteps often meant guilty shoes. Rosa kept working the counter. Martin changed the locks and installed a new latch on the pump shed. Mrs. Danner brought a written statement. Earl Dunleavy told Harlan exactly when he heard Laurel say the water station might not stay open. The detergent supplier sent records showing the attempted contact change. Laurel came once that week and stood near the front machines with both hands clasped. Eric is gone from the house. Opal wiped the counter. All right. I found more bills. All right. I am not asking you to help. Opal looked at her. That is the first wise thing you have said in a while. Laurel lowered her eyes. I deserved that. Do not collect punishment like it is proof of growth. Just change. Laurel nodded and left without asking for a hug. That restraint mattered more to Opal than the apology had. A month later, Harlan returned with new papers. This time, Opal read every line without anyone leaning over her shoulder. The plan was simple in spirit, though long in legal language. The water station would remain tied to community use. No relative, buyer, or future manager could separate the source from the laundromat for private sale. While Opal lived, she kept authority. After her, the trust would protect what Vernon had tried to protect in silence. Tessa sat beside her with a notebook full of ideas for better locks, newer payment buttons, and a sign that explained nothing except who had authority. Too bossy? Tessa asked. Opal read the sign. Opal Merritt is the only person authorized to discuss sale transfer, accounts, vendors, repairs, rumors, or nonsense. Rosa leaned over from the counter. Nonsense stays. Opal smiled for the first time without effort. Nonsense stays. Laurel began coming on Sundays. At first, she sat where Opal could see both her hands. She brought no papers. She asked no questions about accounts. Sometimes they spoke of weather, church, and Tessa. Sometimes they sat in the office with silence between them, not peaceful yet, but honest. One Sunday, Laurel said, I used to think this place made us look poor. Opal did not answer right away. It made us fed, Laurel continued. I did not know the difference when I was young. Then I married someone who made me ashamed of everything that had saved us. Opal looked through the office window at the water station. You were ashamed before Eric. Laurel closed her eyes. Yes, that is yours to carry. I know. Opal turned back to her. I may forgive you one day. I am not promising when. I am not asking for a date. Good. The signing happened on a clear morning with the sky white from heat. Harlan brought the final trust papers to the laundromat because Opal wanted the documents signed where the fight had happened.